So this is a group of suttas that are basically talking about the same topic. The first one is Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Fives, number 151. So it says, Bhikkhus, someone with 5 qualities is unable to enter the sure path in regard to beneficial qualities, even when listening to the true teaching. What 5? They discredit the talk, the speaker, or themselves. They listen with a scattered and distracted mind, and they attend not through the origin, which is ayoniso manasikara. Someone with these 5 qualities is unable to enter the sure path in regard to beneficial qualities, even when listening to the true teaching. Then it says someone with 5 qualities is able to enter the sure path in regard to beneficial qualities when they have the opposite qualities. So they don't discredit the talk, the speaker, or themselves. They listen with an unscattered and unified mind, and they attend through the origin. So yoniso manasikara. And so maybe we can start with that one, because the other 2 have sort of a similar structure, but those 5 things are slightly varied. So, yeah. First of all, we should probably clarify, what does it mean to enter the sure path in regard to beneficial qualities? Because, it's not just... It shouldn't be minimized into just like, oh, I now I agree with the Buddha's teaching or something, because or even I took refuge, because there were many instances in the suttas of people who factually said, I take refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, but they weren't in the sure path in wholesome qualities, which means they were not guaranteed to become arhats because they didn't get the right view.
Yeah, so that's basically also like the answer. Like that particular phrase is a somewhat technical term, but I take it to mean the first of the 8 kinds of individuals, of noble beings.
Yeah, because then, you can, to some extent, have like, as it says, a yoniso manasikara, so then even if you don't have the other 4, and you think the Buddha is the greatest, and you have like total conviction, but you don't have that yoniso recognition of where this teaching actually applies, then yeah, you will, as the Buddha said, there's the one who is pada parama, which means like all he can do is learn the phrases, learn the kind of teachings and recite them and kind of talk about them, but not actually.
There's no actual purification taking place,
exactly,
because as you often say, that right level hasn't been discerned. Those 2 teachings actually apply.
Yeah, so what would be some of the most common ways that, even though as it says someone would be listening to the true teaching, reading the suttas and whatnot, that they would be attending ayoniso, even in like just a very basic way.
Yes.
Lack of restraint?
Of course, yeah, that would be causing it, but like, what would be the more directly speaking,
like while you are listening to someone else?
Yeah, so what reasons why, kind of frameworks of thought that you would have that would prevent you from understanding?
Seeing it as explanation.
Yeah, so even more kind of generally than that.
Yeah, so you see, if one only listens to, and we are assuming that the speaker, that the other person is actually proclaiming true Dhamma and knows what he's talking about. So if one is hearing those words, but is just attending to those words, meaning it stays completely external, right? And you do not, let's say, simultaneously with what you hear, also observe all your own reactions to what you hear, or somebody uses a certain word and you immediately connect it with, oh yeah, that other person has said the same thing, or I read that in a book a year ago, therefore, well, this is actually going to be the next one, but therefore I have already understood it, right? That mental movement is almost completely taken for granted. It goes so quickly, so either one stays completely on the external level and doesn't actually see where those words are supposed to land internally. So the intermediate step is to have those, let's say, both domains, to attend to them both at the same time.
Yeah, so it put it in even more simple terms, that you don't see that this Dhamma is about you.
Yeah, you could put it like that. Yeah.
Self-reflexive.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about you. It's not about, because there are infinite ways that you can proliferate into, like, oh yeah, that how they would connect it with all the science. This is the same thing as the scientists are saying. Or,
that's
like,
already on the level of wrong views now interfering.
Exactly. Or then like trying to find parallels between this school and that school and this and that.
Yeah.
And even with the suttas, actually, there's now the whole kind of early Buddhist movement, which has its positives, obviously, because disregarding a lot of the stuff that came later and muddles the actual message. But then you can see the same kind of ayoniso attitude remains in the form of now, like, oh, the sutta, there has no parallel in the Chinese, or then studying it in a kind of.
That's actually another practical way in which you can tell that you are attending not from the origin. That is this attitude of comparison. Like, if you find that you are comparing what you hear with something else, that means that you have already externalized the message into an object that you can sort of put in front of you, and then compare it with something else. And meanwhile, you stay safely out of the equation because you are just concerned with finding the connections there, whereas the whole message should be 90 degrees right the other way.
So you need to be comparing it with yourself. So the Buddha as always would be talking about greed, aversion, and delusion. Do I have those qualities? To what extent do I have those qualities?
Yeah.
So that would be a basic, because obviously this is not like not talking about a super kind of accurate discernment of final impermanence and not self or something, because it's just saying, oh, it's just the sure path in regard to beneficial qualities. So it's the very start of the path, but it's so fundamental that if you skip that part, then even if later on you get all the information about anatta and all this and that, it's coming from the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And it's also, maybe we can say, I have learned it like this from Jnanaviratera, when he was emphasizing on the subjective compared to the objective, which is just keeping the formations. Yes.
Arm's length, yeah. Yeah, actually, that's one thing, because often it's thought like, okay, so self has to be abandoned, kind of the message of the Buddhist teaching. So then that means subjectivity has to be destroyed. You have to be perfectly objective. And that's when this sort of message comes in, like, ironically, like, that's completely the opposite of what it's saying. You take yourself out of the equation. You don't consider, like, your mental states, your liabilities. It's just this blank present moment. We're all in the same thing, these impersonal kind of sensations, watching or something like that. And the essence of, like, my craving that I act out of, that part is completely unaddressed.
Yeah, and if it would be on that level, then an average well-trained scientist, we would have some reports that they entered that path of surety in a wholesome state.
Yeah, because perfectly objective individual then would be in the position to realize the Dhamma. So
you have to start by taking it personally, ironically, and from within that subjective attitude, as you mentioned, that is where the purification needs to happen. If you skip that first step, you basically don't even start.
And actually, it always says when somebody would start practice and become a monk, it would say the clansman realizes that he's prey to suffering, he's subject to suffering. So he's not just like trying in that impersonal manner, like, oh, I want to find out whether have this curiosity, want to find out whether this teaching is true or not, in that kind of impersonal sense, so that then I can kind of make the comparisons with the other ones. No, it's I am prey to suffering, and I need to find a solution for this, and that leads to the, well, it was actually the previous one, but we skipped on to the last one. That's then when you would be kind of discrediting the speaker and the talk, and because if you don't have the context of, imagine you're looking for a cure for a disease, and then if you don't keep that in mind, you don't keep that as your background of, okay, this is what I'm going to this doctor, then you will be putting first a whole sets of other things like, his attitude, the way he talks, secondary kind of considerations, and you'll be finding fault with, infinite amount of things like, why did he spend such and such this amount of years in medical school instead of this other amount of years, like random things you could start finding fault with.
Yeah, or I don't like the way he talks, I don't like the way he looks,
exactly.
he comports himself, all these external things that so you can notice that, and so it's okay to not like it, but that's not the criteria for dismissing the validity of the message.
Yeah, so because then, again, like, if you have that urgency to find the way out of suffering, it should be pretty clear to you that if you allow yourself to use the criteria that you're used to determine what is worth following or not, you're most likely gonna, pass over what was the true teaching. So basically, you have nothing to gain from that kind of attitude of finding fault, because with the speaker, with the talk, because it's not going to help you, even if it's wrong. Actually, it's not going to help you actually understand why it's wrong. It's going to be just like, I dismiss it again out of all these bunch of other reasons, but you wouldn't be able to kind of come up with a coherent explanation of, I see for myself why this doesn't solve the problem that I'm trying to solve. Why does it need to freedom from suffering?
Yeah, so somebody might be giving a factually wrong message, and to recognize a wrong view as wrong view is valid, but what is not valid is to have the mental state that is looking for faults in the speaker or the message. Those are two different things. Yeah. And you don't need to have that mental attitude in order to see that something factually doesn't add up.
Yeah, exactly. As the Buddha said, the criticism should be always about the view, and it shouldn't be about the person.
Yeah.
So, and the one that says disparaging themselves, well, that's why it says that if the starting point of everything is virtue, and it says when somebody's not established in virtue, they will not be free from regrets. So that's the there was a case of that king who was the king who murdered the previous king who was his father.
Yes.
And then Digha Nikaya too, and then the Buddha was kind of telling him the whole Dhamma, basically explained to him, and then at the end of it he said, if he hadn't killed his father, he would have gained the right view right there. But he's now broken because of what he did. Like, he cannot be, that remorse, he cannot kind of grow out of it anymore because it's so kind of heavy. So then looking in the direction, again, turning the Dhamma into that personal dimension, like, greed, aversion, and delusion is wrong, and look what I did. Then that thought would be so unbearable that, they wouldn't be able to kind of, again, apply that yoniso and see, I have to actually feel ashamed about this. So then, that's why he wouldn't have been able to get the right view, because to some extent, even if there wasn't like that kind of overly coarse, external, scientific, objective attitude that people might have today, still he had to kind of keep it at arm's length to some degree, so as to not feel the weight of his responsibility. So that's in a sense why you need to be established in virtue, because it might not be like that, might have stopped him, but you don't know. For you, maybe something even lesser than that could be what stops you. That such that deep down you still discredit yourself. Like, you still have that sense of remorse on account of something that you know is wrong. And
Mhm.
yeah, you would maybe not even be fully aware of it because that's how these things work. You cover them up and you don't want to admit them. So
So then you have to go stronger in order to be with that, and then there might still be an opportunity to actually hear the message.
yes, it says the only things that categorically stop everyone from understanding Dhamma is like killing your father,
Mm-hmm.
which is what he did, killing your mother, intentionally shedding the blood of a Tathagata, violating a bhikkhuni, and
Killing an arhat.
killing an arhat. Yeah.
Yeah, so assuming that that's not the case, we can continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so the second one says the same thing, and the 5 qualities are again discredit the talk, the speaker, or themselves. They're witless, dull, and stupid. And the 5th one, which is the most interesting one, they think they understand what they don't understand.
Yeah.
Someone with these 5 qualities is unable to enter the sure path in regard to beneficial qualities, even when listening to the true teaching. So the 3rd one is they listen to the teaching with a hostile, fault-finding mind. They're antagonistic to the teacher, planning to attack them. They're witless, dull, and stupid, and again, they don't understand what... They think they understand what they don't understand.
Yeah, I think attack there is like verbal. Like you just want to argue, have debates, and basically want to prove your own points,
Exactly.
which is somewhat ironic because if that would be right, you wouldn't suffer.
Yeah, so see, you are, imagine like you go to this doctor and he's telling you the treatment, and you're trying to tell him what the treatment is.
Yeah, that is just...
So then that means like, oh, you're not even honest about the fact that you are sick.
Yeah.
And that you don't know the way out. So, but then that ties in with saying, oh, he thinks he understands what he doesn't actually understand. And that would be probably one of the most prevalent attitudes, especially again because of all of it ties in together, like because of this whole objective attitude that, you just gather this information and then, everybody and other Buddhists say the same thing and you agree, and that's kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I understood.
Yeah, or it makes sense intellectually, but we did talk on how even the right ideas are not necessarily insight. So, you do need to have the right ideas and the right concepts. You need to think in the right categories, but it's a mistake to stop on that level and not now go further.
And I think also like just hearing that, like I can see that like the kind of tendency will be okay, so then I don't understand, but like this kind of I don't understand can become what I think I do understand in order to not feel the weight of it. Like it's not enough to say like, okay, I don't understand, like I should, we were talking about that a little bit the other day, like I should take on, like if I really kind of acknowledge the fact that I don't understand, I should act as if I don't understand and not starting to kind of like, okay, I don't understand, but still I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. It kind of doesn't go together. And I think Medini wrote a kind of a nice essay, but more or less kind of this attitude of taking like, I don't understand in order to not feel the pressure of doubt, but actually like this recognition of like, I don't understand, it's not necessarily a pleasant thing to recognize for oneself.
Yeah, that it doesn't become like an excuse for just doing, okay, I don't understand, so I just do whatever, hoping that understanding will magically arise. So, I don't understand, and partially that's probably because of things I myself am doing. So then that should feel, again, you should feel the responsibility for that. So, because it would have said, fundamentally beings are owners of their actions, and all of the greed, aversion, and delusion that you've accumulated, even if you don't remember all of the things that you did, fundamentally at that time you chose to do those things. So the same way, you have to realize you don't understand, it's because of not necessarily because of things you did in the past, but because now that you have an option to go in a different direction, you still don't. You might be agreeing again with these external explanations of Dhamma and whatnot, but okay, when it comes down to, do you act as if craving is the root of suffering? Do you live that view, or is it just kind of
an idea disconnected from your daily life?
And you can even see that this is what the Buddha is saying would lead to entering that short path in regard to skillful qualities, whereas usually it would be like the assumption would be again like a mindless practice of meditation, where indeed you would be assuming you understand what you don't understand because I just do this. I don't need to understand for myself what is wholesome, what is unwholesome. I assume that this is already wholesome in and of itself, and I just do it. But see, none of this, that's never mentioned here. Like the Buddha doesn't say you will fail to understand you will fail to understand the Dhamma because you're not sufficiently skilled in that. Because people will usually assume, okay, yeah, I kind of know the Dhamma, because I've been reading the suttas and practicing for God knows how many years. But because I haven't meditated enough or consistently enough or long enough retreat, I haven't had that kind of special insight, that kind of experiential recognition of these things that I already understood. But see, that's the mistake.
Yeah, the confirmation that the method is right hasn't arrived yet, whereas actually the method itself is to understand what the problem is.
Exactly. So instead of having that expectation, you should see, oh no, wait, am I even right in assuming that this is the practice?
Yes.
So
yeah, but that's now going to be unpleasant because you cannot now just disappear in your practice for another hour. You need to question that very practice. So a lot of this boils down to the ability to allow doubt to be present and to make that your vehicle until you find that which you cannot doubt, basically.
Yeah, because that is, in every single case, when you read the suttas, what led to somebody getting the right view. And it's described there, it's yonisamanasikara and the utterance of another. So it's not like, because literally the way it's presented is like, no, you may not have heard anything, no utterance of another, no nothing, you just do this, boom, you get it. But no, clearly here it's saying, if you have these attitudes that kind of obstruct your right acceptance of what, yes, initially is just information, then you will not get to understand that information. And the nature of understanding, if you think about it, it's like, what is it that determines whether you understand some kind of mathematical theorem or something? Like, is it that, oh no, I understand it, but I still need to get the experience of something in order to understand it? No. You know that you don't understand it. Or if you understand it, you know that you do understand it.
Yeah.
So there's nothing more mystical about understanding the Four Noble Truths. So what would be the measure? Because see, of course I say that and then it sounds like, oh, so you're saying it's just intellectual kind of recognition of things that are in the suttas or something. But no, because how would you know that you actually understood the way out of suffering?
Yeah, or that there isn't, or you see, yes, or you might have been going in the right direction and see some benefit, but you didn't go far enough. Right?
So, but yeah, how would you know that your understanding of Four Noble Truths, that yes, everybody has to some extent because they've been reading the suttas, how do you know that that's, how would you distinguish that between let's say insight and understanding, given that it's not just some experience, that because experiences are impermanent, that doesn't mean anything.
Let's say between ideas and insight.
Yeah.
So idea will be like the theoretical kind of thinking, and the insight will be like the direct recognition of, oh, that's how it is.
Yeah, but then so how would you, because even an experience, magical experience you might have had in your meditation, that doesn't mean you understood Four Noble Truths, if we take it from this criteria. hinting at?
Maybe like I just say whatever I think. Will be like if I'm in a kind of situation where I find myself suffering, like I don't have to explain myself why is that happening. I kind of recognize it and I know kind of why is that there.
Yeah, but see, then even saying why is that there, that could mean like psychologization of like, oh yeah, but it's because the consciousness is like this and then this happens and people start talking about mind moments or whatever. So what would be like, I mean, because what are the Four Noble Truths? It's not just knowing what the problem is.
I'm not sure I understand the question now.
So like,
how do you know that you that you have fully understood the Four Noble Truths?
or sufficiently, let's say.
Yes, sufficiently the Four Noble Truths, so that it's not an idea. Because people can have the idea craving is suffering, which is a right idea, but that doesn't mean that there is now no suffering anymore. It's just an idea. And the answer to your question is in that direction.
I think you already.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, if there is still suffering,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you have to explain it, if you have to review the information that you gain to kind of feel at ease.
Mm-hmm. That is already management again.
Exactly. So the measure for actual understanding, yeah, it is kind of something you would be able to explain to somebody else. So it's not that it's some kind of mystical, like, oh, I know it, but I can't explain it.
Yeah. Or it is a nameless truth, or it cannot be put into words, so just the usual mystifications.
Exactly. No, it is something you can explain, which is what the Buddha was doing the entire time.
Mm.
But at the same time, the practical confirmation of it is that you don't suffer, factually, and that is what that's what makes it experiential.
Mm-hmm.
Not some kind of magical insight or again mystical sort of, oh, I saw the final truth. No, it is like throughout your day when you encounter things that confine your mind and make it feel kind of like burdened and weighed down, are you affected?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then you get to see whether it's just information or whether it's actually understanding the way out of suffering. And again, yeah, it's not about just using the information to kind of manage the suffering after the fact. Because from that point of view, I mean, millions of teachings can do that.
Mm.
You just convince yourself that God loves you or something, and that has exactly the same effect. So Dhamma is the only teaching that doesn't require even that. It's suffering not arising in the first place.
So you say when the mind is still weighed down, constricted, I guess, by whatever's occurring, like whatever you're experiencing.
Painful situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
But would that, the not suffering part, would that be on account of having trained the mind, that then would not be bothering you? Or would the mind still be kicking while you would not be suffering?
Well, that's the final insight that the Buddha had. Like, there were other ascetics and Brahmins that would factually teach the taming of the mind, but what the only one who actually taught the complete transcending of the appropriation was the Buddha. So then that's why even when your mind factually, that's a quite a good distinction between, because you could even use the virtue as a form of management to some degree. I mean, it's the right management that will help you understand Dhamma. Like without virtue, there can be no Dhamma. But fundamentally, as the Buddha said, the Dhamma is not virtue. So then you want to realize, is it that I suffer that I'm free from suffering only because I'm kind of so withdrawn from all these things, from sense objects and sensuality in the right way, or is it because even if I were to completely just let go of the practice, then nothing would arise? Obviously, if you had developed yourself properly, you wouldn't be able to do certain things anymore. As the Buddha said, an arahant cannot break the precepts and cannot break celibacy. So, but yeah, then that's why fundamentally, as the Buddha said, samadhi, which you could say is like the mind being tamed or being pliable, that's not the hardwood of the teaching. It's like irreversible liberation, which he called like the unshakable liberation of the mind. That is the essence of. So that is really the final non-management. Because as he said, even putujanas, who obviously would still be dependent on management to some degree, they could still, attain the right kind of samadhi and stuff. The problem is that now the management is like even of a less, like it's not even that. It's not even like taming the mind, it's just ignoring it. So that's why, then it's not even helpful. But yes, even the right management of taming the mind in the right way, that would be transcended by the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. So then, as to say, they would, like the arahant would continue practicing samadhi only for kind of a pleasant abiding here and now, or for kind of an example for future generations, but not because it's necessary. Like a Patujana who hasn't understood that factual cessation be like, no, I have to keep doing this forever.